It's very easy to add static images to the Engage PhD software. When you want to create a rotation of static images, or maybe just one static image at a time, playlists allow you the flexibility of doing that. When you're logged into the software, go to the playlists icon on the navigation. Whether your static images are coming from a client, your marketing team, or you're creating those static images in Photoshop or PowerPoint or some design tool outside of the software, in this example I just have a menu board and then maybe a full screen coffee image that I have in Google Slides, which is similar to PowerPoint, you would want to save those as either a JPEG or a PNG image file. And depending on your orientation or resolution of your screen, you want to be sure to keep that in mind as well. So landscape screens are going to have a resolution of 1920 by 1080. Portrait screens, when the screen is flipped around on its side, that's going to be 1080 by 1920. So from the playlists, I don't have any playlists created yet, so use the Create New button. I'm just going to call this Full Screen Playlist. And then once we're in our playlist here, we're going to use the Upload Media tab to upload our content. Now I think I actually have some demo content here we can use, so I'm going to grab a coffee image, maybe a deli sandwich, a breakfast burrito, and then we're going to upload those. So you can either click on the upload box to locate those files on your computer, or just drag and drop them right into this upload box. Once you get a green check mark on all of your images, click back over on the Assets tab. So when we're talking about assets, think of assets as your storage space in the software. There's a separate section for assets. And this will show you the asset library of all the images that you've uploaded. Now you'll see that the deli sandwich that I uploaded, and I actually uploaded it twice here, so there's two instances of it, that's giving us a little red icon. I'm actually going to switch from a thumbnail view to a list view to show you that. So this gives you the image resolution in the list view. And the reason why I uploaded that large file is because I wanted to show you that that resolution is much larger than 1920 by 1080. The full height and width of your screen is 1920 1080 for landscape, and again 1080 1920 for portrait. If you go much higher than that, like this image, which is 4,000 by 2,000 pixels here, this is going to be much larger than that full screen resolution, and some digital signage media players may struggle to play those really high resolution files. So it's important to remember or keep that in mind when you're creating your content. You don't want to go much higher than 1920 1080 or 1080 1920 for your image resolution. It doesn't mean that it won't play on your screen, but chances are the player might struggle to play that. When I'm talking about players, I'm referring to the hardware, your screens or external media players in the software. And sometimes that hardware really struggles with those high-resolution images. All right, so we have a couple of images here that are the 1920 1080. I'm going to use those as the example. And you can either click on each one individually here from the thumbnail view or go to your list view. And then you're going to just drag those and drop those down into the playlist timeline. So down below is your timeline. From left to right, the order that you want them to play, so kind of like a music playlist in a way. It's automatically going to save that content as we add it. And I like to switch between text view and asset view depending on what I'm looking at here. So the text view certainly gives you the full file name, it gives you the resolution, the file size, but from either view you can rearrange the order of your playlist. If you need to move things around, you can rearrange the order from the image view or from the text view. And then you have this little properties icon from either the text view or the asset or image view, and this opens up options for scheduling. So you have a little calendar pop up here for the start date and end date. So if you need your content to start on a specific date, maybe stop showing on the screen on a specific end date, this allows you to do that through the properties. You also have a time range. So if you need to change or have this display on the screen at a certain time, especially with menu boards. So let's say you're using your playlist for static menu boards. This is one way you can schedule that content to run from a specific time range. And one thing to keep in mind when you are scheduling content, regardless of how you're using the playlist with your static images, whether it's menu boards or digital posters or wayfinding or really any digital signage, when you're using the time range, you want to be sure that that schedule is back to back. So let's say I have this one running from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and then I apply that change, and then I go over to our breakfast burrito. I want to do it from 10 a.m. on. So back to back, it follows a strict 24-hour clock. So it's important to keep that in mind when you're setting up any scheduling within your playlist timeline. And then your seconds here, this is going to be the duration. So if you want to change that maybe a little bit longer on the screen, you can change the seconds as well. And you'll see that when I apply that change, it's actually going to take a couple of seconds here to expand the image here visibly, so we can see that that's a little bit longer in our playlist timeline. So this playlist is ready to go. The next step of getting this connected or live on our screen, on our players, is to use the schedule under playlists here. So that's going to give us a list of our playlists first. Click on select. Select our player, click Next, and Schedule Now will schedule that content right away, or we can use the Select Date and Time to choose a future date and time for that task to take place. So this gives you calendar pop-ups, and then you have this content to show on end. So maybe you have another playlist that you want to take over once this schedule ends. You have that option through the content to show on end. So when it hits that end date and time, maybe you want it to go back to a different playlist. So that's the process of getting it scheduled to your player. Once it's scheduled or connected, then you would go back and make all the changes that you need to from playlists. Just click on playlists, click on the playlist to open it up, and then manage content from the playlist timeline. Now it's important to remember, if you make any changes to the timeline, like I just did by removing the breakfast burrito image, it's automatically going to save that change. But if you do change the schedule in any way through the time range here, that will save in the playlist, but then you'll need to do an extra step by going to the players page, and then as long as our player is online, at the moment my player isn't, but your player would need to be online and connected to the software, and then you can use the little player action button over here on the right-hand side of the line, and then send a force update. And what that does is it's writing that schedule down to the computer chip on your player, on your smart display or your external media player, and it's telling the player what that schedule is. So that's the only extra step when using playlists, setting up any schedule through your properties of all of your assets here. Just be sure to go to your players page and send a force update when you're done.